In this module of WAVE, we are going to learn about traffic control devices, very well known as TCDs. What we are going to achieve in this module is that we will identify the main types of traffic control devices, namely traffic signs, traffic signals, and pavement markings. We will learn, you will be able to explain the principles that govern the design of these TCDs. You will be able to apply MUTCD color, shape, and pattern conventions. What is MUTCD? We'll talk about it. It is the national standard used in the case of TCD design and principles. You will be able to distinguish between different types of traffic signs like regulatory signs, warning signs, guidance signs. You will be able to evaluate the appropriate selection and placement of traffic control devices. And finally, you will be able to design a basic TCD layout based on MUTCD standards. With that being said, let's start talking about why we need TCDs. So TCDs are a way that designers communicate with road users. So in this case, a designer being a traffic engineer, having some principles in mind, safety principles, efficiency principles, and trying to communicate that message with road users, being drivers, pedestrians, bicyclists. We want to communicate a message with the road users, with our system users. And this communication is going to promote two main things. Whenever we are talking about TCDs, or in general, we are talking about design and implementation in traffic engineering, there are two main themes. There are two concepts that we follow, safety and efficiency. So these are the main keywords that you should keep in mind whenever you are dealing with uh, traffic control devices. So we are first going to promote safety and inclusion and mobility for all road users. And second, we are going to promote efficiency by making orderly movements, by providing orderly movements for different road users in different locations. With that being said, uh, how do we design traffic control devices? So there is a national standard called MUTCD, Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices. Uh, the 11, the newest edition is 11th edition that was released in December 2023. It is free. You can download it, as a PDF form, or you can visit the website and look at the material online. Uh, this is what we are going to follow for this lecture. And whenever we are basically designing any traffic control devices, this is our reference. There are also some states that they have adopted their own version of MUTCD, and that is mainly to adopt those federal policies to local requirements. It can be more restrictive, but it cannot be more lenient than the principles and guidelines that are provided in national MUTCD. But it is mostly used to address local needs. Like if you are in an area with a lot of snow or fog or wildfires, then those states may design additional TCDs to address those specific conditions. For the purpose of this lecture, I will be only focused on the national MUTCD, and I suggest everyone to download it and actually look at different sections of this manual. With that, there are three main actually TCDs, traffic control devices defined in MUTCD. Traffic signs is a static ways of communicating a message with road users, like a stop sign, like speed limits, right? Traffic signals, this famous alternating three indications of red, yellow, and green, with red being, the prohibition to stop, yellow to warn, and green to allow movement. And then also pavement marking, what we apply on the pavement in forms of longitudinal marking or in forms of colored pavement. And it is important to know that these three do not work in silos. They work in interaction with each other in order to promote that safety and efficiency that we talked about it. So for the remainder of this lecture, I want to first start with some principles behind the TCD designs. Then I will show you how we communicate with road users as traffic engineers, as designers, how we can communicate with our road users. And finally, we will go over some details related to each one of these TCDs, traffic signs, traffic signals, and pavement markings. So let's look at TCD principles. When we are designing traffic control devices, there are a few principles that are required that we have to follow. First of all, we should that TCD should fulfill a need. I go back to what I said a few minutes ago, that TCDs are supposed to work as a way to communicate with road users. Now, we want to talk to people, but we don't want to be talkative. So we will lose their respect, we'll lose their attention. So there should be a TCD used only if it is gonna serve a specific important purpose. And we'll talk more about this with examples throughout the lecture today. It should command attention, which goes back to the placement and the level of information that we are conveying. Like if you have a traffic sign, stop sign that is behind a tree, it does not command attention. If you have a pole with 10 different signs installed on it, it does not command attention. So these are the things. This is another rule that we should follow. Convey a clear, simple meaning. Remember that we are going to have a very diverse, a wide range of road users. We are going to have elderlies driving with probably longer perception reaction times. We are going to have some novice drivers who might be very inexperienced. They just obtained their driving permit, right? Uh, we have to think about all these road users, and we have to make sure that the message that we are conveying should be very clear and it should be simple. Now, I'm just talking about principles right now. How we do it, it is what we will learn in a few minutes throughout the lecture today, that how we will achieve our goals. It should command respect from road users, as I said earlier, and give enough time for a proper response. With this, now there are four main rules that we will follow in order to place TCDs in order to design and place traffic control devices. The first one, probably the most important one, is what we call primacy. Placement determined by importance. For example, let's say that you are approaching an intersection, and that intersection actually includes it is stopped control, but adjacent to the intersection, there's also a gas station. And we want to inform the drivers, right, about these things that are happening at that intersection. But what do we do first? We will convey the message that is the most important one. If I think about the safety is always the most important uh, theme in traffic control devices. So for sure, I need to let them know of that stop control, of that stop sign, before I let them know about the availability of a gas station. The other one is what we call spreadity, distribute information over a distance. Instead of So imagine the amount of time that a driver has to perceive the information. Like if they're driving 65 miles per hour, it could be a second or a fraction of a second to look at a sign and perceive the information in that sign. Now, if you have multiple signs, if you have a wide array of information all located on one single spot, that would make it more difficult for drivers to perceive and to react. So what do we do here is that we will spread the information, just like the one that we have in that primacy. I will separate the information throughout the distance with the most important ones starting first. The other one is codity, going back again to the best means, ways to communicate the information. Codity is supposed to organize information into smaller units. Let's say you're approaching a signalized intersection, and we want to make drivers aware of the presence of this traffic signal. I can have a sign like this that has a traffic sign on it, or I can have a sign that says signal ahead. Now, which one we pick? The one that would be easier to understand, that I do not need to read, that as soon as I look at this, I see a traffic light, and I would expect that to come up in a few fits or whatever was the design here. So our preference should be always to convey information in smaller units. And finally, redundancy. And this is very important. And I will talk about it a lot. I'll talk about some examples when we get to traffic signs, but we will convey information in multiple ways. So if the driver miss one of them, we have other ways of communications. For example, look at this left turn, a traffic signal that is showing a left turn. And if you have a driver license, if you've read the DMV, the DMV manual, you should know that a flashing yellow arrow shows what we call a permitted left turn. What is a permitted left turn? It means that you have to find gaps. You have to yield the right of way to through moving vehicles, and you have to find an appropriate gap to turn left. Now, although we expect you to know about it based on the DMV guidelines and rules, we still add this sign next to it. So as a supplementary way of communicating the information that left turn yield on flashing. So if it is solid arrow, it is what we call a protected left turn, that you don't have any opposing movements. You can turn left when, as soon as you arrive at the intersection. Now, let's, now that we know about the principles, let's talk about the ways, the methods, tools that we actually use to communicate the information. The most important one is color. We are talking a lot about visualizations. So the most important way of conveying information, transferring information with road users is using different colors. MUTCD has defined 13 different colors. Uh, 11 of them, they have an uh, assigned responsibility, assigned information, and two of them are reserved for future. So what are these 13 colors and what are the 11 assigned? The first one is black, and black is always used to show regulations. And black is always used as the color for text. If there is a black color used, it would be the text, and it's usually on a white background showing regulations like speed limit. Next one is blue. It is road user service guidance, tourist information, and evacuation roads. So it's usually a blue background with white text, like if you want to show rest areas or touristic areas, this is the color that we use. We have brown that shows recreational and cultural interest area guidance. So what you can see here, for example, if there is a public beach, the sign that we use, it should have a brown background. We have coral that is, there's no information assigned to it, no rules assigned, but it is reserved for future use. This is coral that is kind of something like somewhere between brown and orange. We have fluorescent pink that shows incident management. If there is, for example, imagine there is a crash on a major highway and the highway is completely blocked. And now we have to divert the traffic to some local streets. So we have to show them detour. And it's going to be temporary and it's going to be due to an incident that is happening on the roadway. Then the sign will use a pink color, as you can see here. So remember that it is temporary and it is going to be because of an incident that has happened on the roadway. Then we have fluorescent yellow-green that is used for pedestrian warning, bicycle warning, playground warning, school bus warning, and school warning. Most importantly, most frequently, you will see these signs next to schools to inform the drivers of the presence of school children and the presence of crossings to make them more aware. We have a unique color, this yellow green, and a unique shape. I'll talk about the shapes later. By the way, something I forgot to say is that as you can see, whenever we have a sign, there is a number below that sign. What is this number? This is a unique number assigned by MUTCD. So if you want to find the specifications of this speed limit sign, you can search R21, R2-1, and then you can find that in MUTCD. You can find all the relevant information about this traffic sign. So every traffic sign has a unique number, and that reflects the number in MUTCD. What other colors we have? We have green, that is indicated movements or actions permitted, and direction guidance, like if I have a local street and I want to show that this lane goes to that local street, the color that we use in the background, it would be green. We have light blue, another color that is reserved for future designation. You see that these are the parts that become tricky because we also have blue, and the maintenance of these traffic signs is very important. We should make sure that the color do not fade over time. Uh, so we will avoid, or you see some colors that are very similar to each other, like pink and purple and or green and fluorescent and green yellow. So it is very important. It's very sensitive actually to take care to apply appropriate colors and to maintain these traffic signs. Another color is orange. This is for temporary traffic control, usually due to construction. So if there is an incident, we will use pink colors as you saw in the previous slide. If we have construction, like imagine there is for construction purposes, one lane of a 4-lane highway is completely closed. So we need to diverge the traffic, these 3 lanes, and how we do that is we apply longitudinal markings, solid marking. I'll talk more about that in a few minutes. But we will also apply these signs that will use orange background. We have purple, that is for electronic toll collection to show, for example, if a lane is assigned for ETC. And we have red, probably the most important color because it is the most important in terms of safety. Red shows a stop or prohibition, like a stop sign that you can see here. And we have white. usually used as a background color or as the color of a text, but the white shows the regulations. And finally, we have yellow that is warning. Like here, we are warning drivers that of a slippery condition on the roadway. Is this the only way that we communicate message with drivers? Are we only focusing on the color? No, we are aware that these colors, drivers could disregard the color altogether. And remember that redundancy, we talked about it. So we also think about the shape. When we are communicating the information, the shape also plays an important role. Like, look at this stop sign. It is an octagon, right? This is the only application of octagon in traffic engineering, in traffic signs. There is no other sign that has an octagon shape. There is a reason for that, because stop is very, very important information to convey with the drivers, with bicyclists, with road users in general. So in addition to have that color of red, we have this unique shape. So if I want to think of redundancy, there are three different ways that I'm communicating this stop message on this sign. One, red color. Two, a unique shape that is only applied to this information. Three, written stop, writing stop all capital to convey this information. Sometimes we add another layer of conveying the information that is writing a stop on the pavement. So perpendicularly, on the cross section, we just write stop. So there are actually four different ways. Think of this redundancy, that we make sure that an important message is conveyed with the drivers in any way possible to make sure that their drivers are going to follow that message. Another one that we have is a yield sign. Again, you see that this shape is unique as this triangle with the base on top. This is only used to communicate yield information. Think about the redundancy as I'm showing you all these different shapes. We have these diamond shapes that are mostly used for warning purposes. So we have the yellow color that is supposed to warn, but also the unique shape here. School warning. Remember that we have the color, but we also have this house shape that is supposed to convey a message of the presence of kids, right? This is what we expect to happen at a house. So what you see is that this unique shape of house is only used to show for school warnings and for school crossings. So this unique shape is another way, in addition to the color, to communicate the information. What else we have? Do not enter, that is a circle, is a circular format, but it is always actually installed on a square white background. But the sign itself, it is going to be a circle. And circles are not very frequently used. There are very, very few examples of circular shapes used for traffic signs. What else we have? We have crossings, see, as we expect on a crossing. So X shape, that is the only X shape that we have at MUTCD, because it is supposed to be used as another way, this shape to communicate the information, or something like this, the cross within a circle with a yellow background and with R's written in capital R letters to show the importance of the information. So how many ways? One is the cross, two is the circle, three is the color, four is the letter. Four different ways of communication here. Or we can look into roads and based on the hierarchy of the roadway, if we are dealing with an interstate highway or if it is a local road, there are different shapes, unique shapes used for them. And look at the color. For example, here, the color is brown. What was the brown showing? Historical, touristic, mostly historical areas. This is a national forest showing a national or state forest or park. So this was a second way of communicating the message. Is there another way? Yes, we have patterns. So when especially talking about pavement markings, like we have a solid line, we have a double line, and we have a broken line. Look at these examples. Like there is a merge lane here, and because this is a very controversial area, this is that there could be a weaving happening, like if you are merging the traffic here and you might want to exit later, you might be trying to cross to cut these lanes, and it would be a safety issue, right? So what do? We make sure that we have these double solid lines here that will make sure that the drivers are not crossing here. Safety. So we are transferring that message, that safety message, using these double lines, maximum or special restriction. Sometimes we just have solid lines, like look at the center line that is solid, and we have broken lines. So we have the center line includes one solid and one broken. What does that mean? It means that the drivers on, let's say this is north, then this would be eastbound vehicles moving towards east. So eastbound, they are not allowed to move into the opposing lane, but westbound moving, they are allowed because this is a broken line. Both of them are yellow, which shows the separation of two different ways, of two different directions on one corridor. Do we have other patterns? Yes. We have dotted lane, like if you're driving on a highway or a freeway and one lane is completely assigned to exit ramps, then from a distance, for example, this suggestion of MUTCD is in half a mile, we start at least half a mile, we start these dotted lanes, dotted line markings that is supposed to convey the message that this lane is exit only. Is it the only way that we communicate the message? No, we also add traffic signs, but again, think about that redundancy, that safety factor that we are considering in our design. And these are usually wider. So sometimes they are even called elephant feet because they are wider uh, pavement markings. Again, another way to communicate the message. We also have dotted lines that are used within the intersections to guide vehicles. The most important use of them is for left turns. So in order to make sure that left turns are happening safely, that drivers are not lost as they are navigating the left turn, so we avoid a head-on collision at the intersections. We make these dotted extensions to make sure that the drivers are staying on the area that is assigned to them. Sometimes it is also given to the bicycles. Like if you have an exclusive bike lane, if a standard or conventional bike lane and is going through an intersection, we have these dotted lines to kind of reinforce the right of way for bicyclists throughout the intersection. So far we learned about colors as a way to communicate the information. We learned about shapes. We learned about the patterns, and also there are legends. Probably least useful of the other methods compared to the other methods because here we actually require the road users to read something. So perceive it, read it, perceive it, react to that. It will be a higher workload, a cognitive load. So not ideal, but another way that could be a supplementary way to communicate the information. Like you might have seen stop here on red, especially if you have a protected permitted right turn. These are very common legends that are used in addition to the stop line. So we have a stop line, and we have a traffic light, but in order to make sure that the drivers understand what is happening with these protected permitted right turns, we have these stop here on red signs. Um, Left turn yield on green. I talked about it at the beginning of the class. And uh, if you have like the information about available gas stations or foods, or it could be just changeable message signs, variable message signs, CMS or VMS, that to convey the information in a dynamic way, we may have these legends applied on those changeable message signs. Now that we know about the principles, we know about the ways that we use to communicate the information, let's talk about each one of these three main TCDs, traffic control devices: traffic signs, traffic signals, pavement markings. And let's start with traffic signs. Traffic signs are divided into, based on MUTCD, they're divided into three categories. First category is what we call regulatory, which is going to inform road users of regulations. These signs are typically a black, red, white text or symbol on a white background or white text on a red background. Look at these signs. For example, showing a speed limit. What do we see here? We see a black text on a white background. What is it enforcing? A regulation of speed that you cannot go more than 50 miles per hour. Look at this sign. It is a white background with a black capital letter here and red text and sign. What is it supposed to convey? That parking is not allowed at this specific location, and this is the legend to inform when exactly this is enforced. Look at the other one, a one-way traffic sign, a black, and this is very rare to have a black background. This is probably, again, to make sure that this unique message is conveyed in a unique way. A black background, a white arrow, and black text. And then we have these regulatory signs that we talked about them in previous slides, uh, like wrong way, do not enter, stop, yield. As you can see, most of them, they have a white text, all capital, on a red background. So this is the first type of traffic signs. The second type of traffic signs are warning signs, that they are going to alert drivers or road users of unexpected condition on the roadway. Typically black text or symbol on a yellow background. Like if there is a bump on the roadway, especially if the bump is just recently installed. It is good to have that sign forever. If there are unfamiliar road users, but when we just apply those, speed bumps, we must inform the drivers, warn the drivers of their presence. If there is a uh, slippery roadway, if there are TCDs, so the change of uh, right of way on the roadway, we will inform the drivers about them. So as you can see, they are diagonal, they are in yellow background, and they have black symbols or black text, or in order for that, going back to that codity, trying to simplify the message that we are conveying. We have guidance, direct road users. So typically white text and green, blue, brown background, depending on what we are referring to, what we are directing to. Like if there is a rest area, if there is a historical point, Oregon Trail in this example. This is the type of method that we use to communicate the message. You see, these are all white text on different backgrounds, and the color of the background goes back to the information that we want to convey. What about traffic signals? The second type of traffic control devices. MUTCD defines 9 types of traffic signals. The first type is the most famous one, the one that probably comes to your mind first, just regular, usual traffic control signals, what you will see at signalized intersections. Uh, we have different configurations, depending on the lane configuration, depending on the movements that are allowed at the intersection. We have a separate module that is only for traffic signals, and I'll talk more about the traffic signals in that module. But just for your information, uh, going back to the messages, remember that we had these 3 colors. Every one of them is conveying a message. Red is prohibition, is a stop. Yellow is warning. Green is allowed movement. Now, in this setting, which one goes on top? Red goes on top. Why? Because that is the most important message to be transferred. So if there is a truck in front of you, we want to make sure that the one that has the best visibility for drivers is this red indication. That is why red is going to be always on top. Now, if you rotate the traffic signal, because it mostly happens because of the clearance, vertical clearance. If there is not available vertical clearance, so you cannot place the traffic light vertically, you should place it horizontally. Usually, red must go, not usually, red must go on the left side because math starts from left, right? Because alphabet writing, English writing starts from left. So the important message should go on the left. Although this is a tricky area. Going back to human factors, some languages, they go from right to left. So this is not universal. Not everyone would say that the information placed on the left side is the most important message. Sometimes if you ask people from other languages, other cultures, they may say the information that is placed on the right side is the most important one. That is why my suggestion is always to avoid horizontal faces, but everyone knows that the information placed on top is the most important one. This is universal. What else we have about traffic in traffic signals? We have pedestrian signals and flashing beacons. So pedestrian signals are similar to these traffic control signals, but they do not happen at intersections. They happen at mid-block crossings. Like if you have a street that has a very um, high speed limit, or drivers tend to drive very fast on those streets. And there are actually a lot of land uses that require pedestrians to cross. Like, for example, imagine there is an apartment complex on one side of the roadway and there is a supermarket on the other side. And this is a very fast or high speed corridor. Drivers are driving very fast, and there is a lot of mid-block crossing happening here. In order to create a safe environment for pedestrians, we would apply a pedestrian signal, usually done by push buttons. Sometimes there are other detection strategies, but mostly with a push button to activate the pedestrian signal. It could be a signal like this. We have red, we have yellow, we have green, only for to allow pedestrians to move, or it could be something like flashing beacons or even alternating yellow lights. So if you have pedestrian hybrid beacons, it is usually not active. And when there is a pedestrian there, so this not being active means that it is similar to having green. So the default, excuse me, the default on the street is for vehicles to go. And when there is a pedestrian, we will first start with flashing yellow upon the activation to let the drivers that, okay, right of way is about to change. Then we make it steady yellow, similar to the steady yellows you see here, to warn the drivers, give them enough time to stop or to cross. And then we'll make it a steady red during the pedestrian walk interval. Uh, as I said, there is another module that we will talk about traffic signals and their principles, their design. So I don't go into that detail of what is, for example, a pedestrian walk interval. And then, but it is the amount of time that pedestrians are allowed to cross the intersection and enter the intersection at any time during that walk interval. And then it would be alternating red to clear the intersection or clear the crossing, not intersection, clear the crossing. And finally, it goes back to that dark mode that is equivalent of green for pedestrian movement, green for vehicular movement. What else we have? So these were three. Another form of traffic signals, according to MUTCD, is emergency vehicle traffic control signals. Usually, this is what you see next to fire stations. If there is a call and these fire trucks are getting out and we need to stop the traffic, the way that we communicate the message is very similar to what we had for pedestrian flashing beacons. So this dark mode means that the default is green for vehicular movement. Then we warn the drivers, then these alternating reds, and it goes back to its original dark mode. Another form of traffic signals are for one-lane, two-way facilities. Uh, this could happen in different locations, different circumstances, right? Like if you have a construction on a two-lane highway and one lane is blocked. Now, usually what happens if it is a temporary construction, it would be just to use personnel to direct the traffic. If it is a very long-term construction, we will find detours. But if it is somewhere in between these two, that we cannot apply a detour and we cannot have workers there, we may think of traffic lights that are regulating the use of that one remaining lane. Another example is the case that you have a bridge that is only one lane, or if you have a tunnel that is only one lane because it is in a remote area or there was not enough budget to make a two-lane bridge or two-lane tunnel, or there was no need for that. Actually, the demand is not that high. So what we do is that we have a traffic light on each side of the bridge or each side of the tunnel to make sure that we control this, that we provide an orderly flow on that tunnel or in that tunnel or on that bridge. We also have traffic control signals for freeway entrance ramps. We call this ramp metering. You probably have seen them a lot as you are driving and you're trying to get into freeways or highways. Why do we do that? It is because we give the highest priority to the movement of vehicles, mobility here on the main corridor. So we try to control accessibility on those freeways and highways, meaning that if all of a sudden a huge demand goes from on-ramps into the freeway, they could disrupt the flow on that freeway, on the main corridor. But what we do is that we make this movement gradual, this entrance gradual movement, so we avoid a disruption of traffic on that major corridor. For that, we usually have these ramp meterings. By the way, each one of these 9 traffic signals, they have their own way of design. Their configurations might be similar, but their regulations, even the placement of information, they are very different from each other. We have traffic control signals for movable bridges in the cities where there is a river that uh, transfer huge ships and the bridge needs to be moved for the bridge to pass. Then we control the vehicular traffic by traffic signals, lane use control signals. You may see things like this when imagine you have a four-lane bridge that one of the lanes is not used during off-peak hours. So for maintenance purposes, for efficiency of that bridge, we usually prevent people from using one of the lanes during off-peak hours. Or if there is, for example, a lane that is directional, like imagine the traffic in the morning going mostly to north and in the afternoon going south, and there is one lane in between that the direction changes over time. During the morning, it would be north. During the afternoon, it would be south. So we use these lane use control signals, as you can see here. And finally, we have in roadway lights, mostly for pedestrian crossing. If we want to find another way, another method of redundancy, we'll use in-road lights. What about pavement markings? So let's also talk about pavement markings. Pavement markings are also in different formats and convey different messages. Like we have longitudinal marking that provide parallel information, like center lines, lane markings, edge marking, as we saw earlier. We have the center line that is separating two different directions of traffic, that is white is yellow. And then we have edge marking here. It is solid, so it shows the edge of the roadway, but it is white because it's not separating two different directions from each other. And then we have these dashed, broken white lines that are separating the traffic on the same direction from each other. We have also traverse marking that provides cross-sectional information. The most important cross-sectional information to be provided are crosswalk markings, pedestrian crossing. So according to MUTCD, you could have four different types of pedestrian crosswalks: transverse, you can have longitudinal bar, ladder, and bar pair. This is also called sometimes zebra crossing or piano crossing. And as you can see, MUTCD has clear guidelines for the design of each one of these types of crosswalks. Another important cross-sectional information is a stop. So usually before we reach to these crossings, there is a stop line, perpendicular, cross-sectional, to show where the drivers, where the vehicles must stop. So we kind of clear a buffer here. That is mostly important if you have large trucks predominantly on the roadway. So this buffer will make a more visibility for pedestrians who are crossing to those bigger vehicles. Another one is yield signs and yield lines, mostly at the entrance to roundabouts where we know that the entering vehicles should yield the right of way to circulating vehicles. We will use the yield marking. What else we have? We also have colored pavement that provides lane use information. And according to MUTCD, there are different colors that you can apply on the pavement. One of them is yellow, that is used to improve the visibility of the areas that are separating traffic in opposing direction. Like you have an exclusive left turn lane created here. You see that? And we want to make sure that that lane is separated from the vehicles that want to go through, or even from the left turn that is happening here. So we will use this yellow. At the same time, we are separating that with the movement on, let's say, eastbound. or something like this, a left hand shoulder. What other colors we have? We have white pavement colors, similar to yellow, but this time it is used to separate vehicles that are moving in the same direction. So give visibility to the buffers in between the vehicles that are going same direction. Like, look at this. There is an exclusive left turn, and we want to channelize this. So we have this buffer area here all colored in white. Or this is an exit ramp, and here we have the area colored with white to separate these movements to and also this we need to add some safety cushions here for safety purposes. What are other colors we have for pavements? We have green that is used to give visibility to bicyclists, basically to reinforce the right of way for bicyclists, to tell the drivers that this area is not yours, that you should be respectful of the right of bicyclists to use this part of the roadway. Now you can see that there is no really a national standard on how to apply like the green color on on a bike lane. It could be a continuous, a solid green applied. It could be just some signs, some arrows to symbols to show that this line is for bicycles, and that would be in green, or it could be dashed green. But whatever it is, just remember that dashed is supposed to convey interruption. Is if you are using dashed marking, for example, in this case, a dashed green marking, it is supposed to tell that here you should expect crossings to happen. So look at this. There is why this is dashed, because if there is a vehicle that they want to turn right, they could cross here, right? So there would be a potential conflict happening here or even here. So we make this dashed to reinforce that information. And also here, dashed helps to reinforce the placement of bicyclists within the intersection. By the way, maybe I should have said this earlier. Everything that we talk about here is in US context. MUTCD is a US manual. If you go to other countries, they may have different rules and regulations. Like if you go to Netherlands, the color that is assigned to bike lanes is red. Green is not used for bike lanes. Red in US context, this is actually the next slide, is used for public transit. So we are not allowed to use any other color than green for bike lanes and any other color than red for public transit. So if we use red, this is used to enhance the visibility of locations, stations, stops, or travel lanes in the roadway exclusively reserved for vehicles of public transit. And depending on the configurations of the design of the bus stop, we may apply it in different ways. Look at this again. When we have some sort of conflicts happenings, interactions between mixed modes happening, we have this dashed sign, the dashed pavement marking. Although you should know that this is not universal. Even within the United States, there could be different applications. There could be nothing on the roadway. There could be just longitudinal white pavement markings without any color applied. So these are mostly suggestions. And finally, we have the purple color, similar to what we had for the purple on traffic signs. On the pavement marking, it is also going to show the electronic toll collection and data for that. Our reference for this lecture was all from all the material came from Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, MUTCD, the latest version, 2023 version. Uh, and as I said, there are some states, including California, that has its own MUTCD.